I was curious about, Mike, you might be able to answer this question. Somebody asked me recently about rainwater catchment systems and whether you have to be the property owner in order to be able to capture that water off of your roof, or how all those systems kind of work.
It's my understanding that rainwater capture is not prohibited either federal level or state level. Certainly we don't have a county ordinance that addresses it. I've not heard whether or not ownership of the rainwater, lies with the underlying property owner, or whether they can authorize the tenant to collect it. The main concern our office would have is, you're typically not going to be reusing that water right as soon as you capture it. You're going to need to store it for some length of time. In order to get much benefit out of it, you're probably going to want to store a considerable amount. So things that come to mind are containers that would preclude the breeding of mosquitoes and creating a nuisance or posing a drowning hazard. As long as you got those two bases covered, I know of nothing else that requires that you get authorization or a permit or that would prohibit you from doing that.
Great, thank you.
Rick, comment about people doing things. We in Pine Grove are investigating reactivating our old water system, pre-65, that supplied the town then. If we can get the purification equipment, we have a well that turns out 140 gallons a minute. It could take care of all of Pine Grove without any you get. But can it be done? Can we purify it? Pipelines in place to pump it up to the tanks. That's a big project for a little bunch like us, but we're looking at it. We just supply some. We could do our part now on non-potable without any trouble, things like that. Would like some help from you maybe on where we can get to small-scale purification.
Yeah, there are a lot of small systems for home-based wells. I'm not sure about the medium range.
You got any ideas, give us a call.
Okay.
So why don't we, I was going to do a round robin if
a couple of points. Got something else, Catherine?
Base wells, I'm not sure about the medium range.
You got any ideas, give us a call.
Okay.
So why don't we, I was going to do a round robin if
a couple of points. Got something else, Catherine has something to
open mine. Catherine?
Yeah, I just want to say that last year I know East Bay Mud did an experimental billing in one of their neighborhoods where instead of just showing people their own use year over year, they actually showed people's on every bill it showed where your use was relative to your neighborhood. And the idea behind that is driven by some social science studies that show that people want to do as well or better than other people. And not really cooperating, but just being part of kind of a whole thing. It's a social learning concept. So do y'all have the ability to do that? I mean, at least by system, so you could have AWS average or COP average or something that gives people some idea, how am I doing compared to everybody?
I think to some degree we can. It may be by treatment plants is where we'd have to use some of that data. It's not as easy because you're need to look at residential and really pull out some of the commercial establishments to be apples and apples.
Sure.
So it may be a broader type of analysis. Something we'll look at. One thing that we do, and Chris mentioned it earlier, is we do what's called a buck slip. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's really kind of just a small paper that can be inserted in the bill. If you have information that goes out to your customers, whether it be a billing or other information, we'd like to share these with you, or at least a template. If it's something you can put in,
I'll make a statement.
Talks a little bit about the conservation measures, where we're at, reaching those, kind of some of the requirements that are in place. So we're happy to share that template with you if you can also kind of insert that to your customers. So are any of the cities or others planning to send something out to your customers? Okay, great. We would love to, happy to share this with you and however that works best. Another item is that I thought we'd bring up is, because we're wrestling with this issue, and that's pools, new pools going in. Effectively, in our requirements for the stage 2 is no emptying and filling of pools. I mean, that's a lot of water that all of a sudden can't be utilized. But you can add water to maintain the level of the pools. That is allowed. But what about a new pool? Are there any restrictions that are being contemplated for permits for new pools?
Not in Jackson.
You gotta fill them without crack.
I mean, yeah. It just seems like there are so few that get installed.
On every other week.
It's a nice thing to have there, but I think realistically it doesn't take that much water.
Or much at all, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I own, the only permits we're getting for new construction are solar panels and pools, so, there's not much other activity going on down there construction-wise, but we have had a few requests for new pools to be put in, so.
What about, just kind of go around the room and different agencies or individuals just sharing something? We heard from the prisons, so.
Can we start with the county?
County? Sure.
Chuck back.
Chuck. He's hiding back there.
Well, we don't have a massive conservation plan. We're stopping the obvious waste. The sheriffs aren't washing their vehicles anymore, things like that. We'd already stopped most outdoor watering. If you notice, everything around the county is, for the most part, turned brown around the building. One big issue we could have would be all of our athletic fields, and those are operated by ACTA, who's not here. But that's one thing to look at.
Sure.
Speaking of athletic fields, I had a question. We have sports are throughout the year scheduled. Some fields get used more during one part of the year and not for another. Would you buy the fact that maybe we're budgeting water to the priority fields so we could water more than 2 days a week to keep it green, that when they're getting beat up, say we're not watering a baseball field that's not being used, but football season's about to start and we're watering, so taking those 2 days from this field and putting it to that, it's neutral, it's not going to save water, but would you buy that?
Well, it's actually coming down from the state to keep it at the 2 days per week. So it's not just our restriction, but is it such that you could, if you water twice a week, is that not adequate for the fields?
Some of them no, just because of the use. One thing I have found that, and maybe everybody knows this or maybe you don't, but if you set your timers to water for less time for more cycles, the water actually has a chance to soak in before it evaporates or runs off. So we have some really tough dirt and the water wants to run off. So we'll run it 5 or 7 minutes 4 times a day instead of a half hour a day. So it ends up being less water and the ground gets more of it and the lawns like it a lot better.
The state often gets involved with good faith effort. And I'm thinking if the school district, for example, can show that they have conserved a certain percentage, I can't say they would, but it would seem to me that it would be irrelevant if you're watering the field more or less than 2 days.
Just the total usage.
That's just me. That's not the state.
Yeah, this I think is the proposed state reg. The water board will be voting on May 4th, and it says limit outdoor irrigation of ornamental landscapes or turf with potable water no more than 2 days a week, or implement another mandatory conservation measure or measures intended to achieve 25% reduction in water consumption. So it's kind of like a pulse.
So that's my question, and I think is what I'd like to hear is what is the school district doing?
And then the 25% is based on your 2013 saving or use.
Aside from lawns, it's just usage of like our cafeterias and restrooms, and that pretty much is what it is. We can't, because of public health codes, we can't ask people to let it mellow if it's yellow. But one thing I would say we could do for the county is we have about 3,800 kids that are your best bit of marketing you'll ever see. Like, I told my kids about this last year, and they are annoying. They're following me, they're like cops. They love it because it gives them a little control or a little authority. If, say you guys talked about what you talked about at some of our schools to the kids, I bet, I don't know how to measure it, but I bet you'd see a huge bit of help. Kids love to go home and tell their parents to knock it off and stop, I got 3,800 is a pretty, we have 13 schools. You probably have to deliver something a little different from elementary to junior high to high school, but I think you guys would find that.
So are you suggesting something more as far as presentations, or how would you suggest?
I think so.
Yeah.
Is that okay to do?
Or just something, materials we'll send home, we'll distribute. We have ways to communicate through our students with the families. So whatever we can do to get that information out there.
You might even challenge your teachers to come up with a in-class program of educating, because I know it works on recycling, you get involved in that.
Yeah,
I'm sure it would with water.
As previously mentioned, I mean, we have fields and grass that take up most of our usage, and our sports go 12 months out of the year. I mean, we don't even take off during the summer. The football team's out there practicing during the summer, so we've cut back our watering. Like Joey said, we're not watering athletic fields that aren't in use that season. But as far as 3,800 students, that's a lot of flushes going on during the day. That's a lot of pulls at the drinking fountains, and so we just have to, you're right, educate and really involve our teachers to help with the program.
So you must get a water bill that tells you how much water you use.
Yes.
And you got one from 2013, and you can show a 25% reduction?
We have to, so that's our goal.
Well, are we going to, as a water agency, going to worry about, for example, whether the school district hits their 24% or not, or are we looking at our system collectively?
Collectively.
I think collectively, but yeah, I mean, I recommend that you watch how much you're using and see if you're hitting that 25%, and try to, I mean, if everybody's doing that, then we should meet our target.
Or like she said with the social science experiment, we could all meet here again next year and throw stones at each other.
It might be sooner than that, but we don't get the water pulls out like that.
Is there any reliable forecast besides all the doom and gloom conspiracy theories on the internet? Is there anybody talking about what this looks like next year, the year after, 10 years out? Should we start trying to sell our properties and move?
Well, the guy wants to build a pipeline from Washington to bring water down here.
It's difficult, that the information is not very reliable when you start looking out that far.
Especially since this has been the worst.
Last year, about this time, there was all this El Nino's coming, don't worry, remember that?
Yeah.
Be happy, plenty of water, plenty of rain, and here we are, it didn't happen.
How do you think people need to understand the magnitude of the drought that we are in, though? Sometimes I don't think people necessarily get that picture. I think if we can provide more visuals or be in people's faces a little bit more, I think it would benefit overall.
I remember my Rotary Club was asking me, what's going on with water conservation? I said, well, we've got this, and you have this target that's coming, and he says, well, I never heard anything from my water agency, which had to be one of our wholesalers. I said, well, we've got this, and you have this target that's coming, and he says, well, I never heard anything from my water agency, which had to be one of our wholesalers, who's president of this meeting. But anyway, so part of this is communicating, and how we can do that, and we need to do it, and
We've heard from the county, we've heard from the Mule Creek and the schools. Dave and Todd, what are you guys doing?
Well, obviously, we take water from AWA, so we're trying to comply with their regulations. Our problems, of course, is we have a lot of acreage in parks, and as you know, we have a raw water line that's been leaking since probably the 50s when it was put in.
So you should be good for it here, so I can fix the leak.
Well, right now, the cost to fix that is so expensive. We're looking at other alternatives, but our only way to do that is turn the water on and off. For example, we had the water off to the park for 2 weeks just to keep that line down, but obviously now we've got to get the fields watered. The other problem we have is we tend to be more of a regional site for soccer and Little League, so we're entertaining a lot of the people outside of the city in terms of the services we provide there at Howard Park in particular. So, you know, we're moving ahead on that. Obviously, it's very expensive to replace that water line, so we have that problem. We also maintain a pool for the school for the summer program, and I understand that pool leaks as well, but that's another very expensive process to fix. I mean, it costs us in chemicals and various other things that have to be used at the pool. So we have a couple of problem areas that are more infrastructure related. We think our newer sections of town are fine. The golf course that the city owns the property is used reclaimed water for its irrigation, so that's not affecting any potable source. But the older part of town is a problem. You know, I don't know how often, you know, Gene, you guys have done leak detection. I know you had a big repair out there last week with a line break, and I don't know whether that's associated with older pipe in that part of town or whether it's just sort of your normal course of business. But you know, I think if we want to be aggressive, we have to look at, you know, pipe replacement programs. I think, you know, we would you know, hope that the water agency would be more aggressive too, and maybe toilet replacement programs and things like that with some rebates or something, because then maybe the city could, you know, funnel some money into that program to assist our residents, particularly in the older part of town where they're probably using, you know, the old style toilets and things like that that need to be replaced. But again, we're, you know, unless, you know, AWA wants to give us, you know, some direction, our municipal code doesn't allow us right now to go out and enforce water violations, but obviously that could be changed.
Dave, those medians at the golf course, those are...
We turn the water off on those.
Were those reclaimed water?
That's, I believe that's potable water for those on the medians.
Okay.
How much does the Union pipeline leak?
Well, our estimate is if you left it running full time, it leaks approximately 1.8 million gallons a month. So it's a staggering amount of water that goes out of there, but our only, you know, we're talking a pipeline though that's probably, I don't know, 3 miles long maybe, I'm not real sure, but it's a long pipeline that's put in the 50s, and obviously it's a private pipeline too, it's not part of AWA's system. So we only inherited when the Uniman mine pulled out and we needed water to irrigate our parks. It also is a fire protection line as well, which we're also having to address. But it's a major leak, and like I say, our 25% is turning it off at least a week out of the month. But this has been going on for years and years. So.
You know, just a little bit more about that. You know, I know that when Uniman was utilizing that system, it was, and others before them, it was almost in a constant state of repair, constantly fixing leaks. And so now that Uniman is out of the area, there's a new owner that I understand is coming in, and I'm hoping to be speaking with them this week. And the main topic of discussion will be what they can do to repair, replace, or stop the leakage from that line. So that will be a point of discussion with them, and see how quickly that can occur. You know, as far as other information, I mean, we you know, we'd love to get information through your customers. If you have a newsletter going out to your constituents, information pamphlets that can be done. table tents that can be handed out to backwash water. We're doing that currently in the Buckhorn treatment plant. We hope to have underway in the Ione water treatment plant, a recycle system. We'll be looking at something in the near future for a Tanner facility. We actually use that reclaimed backwash water in the Tanner system for
90 gallons a day per person.
Non-potable uses. So it's not as it does have some beneficial use, unlike in our Ione plant where it goes into the sewer system. So those are some of the bigger things. We're looking to actually try to pipe the canal system. Part of it's been piped previously, but we're actually looking to get the entire thing piped. And we actually have some grant funds to do that. But those are going to take, they don't happen immediately. A lot of the conservation measures we're looking at now are things that we can start making the public aware of right away, put to use immediately to save water. Again, you know, trying to get the word out, getting people aware. It's not been the board's approach to levy fines on folks, and it's more so to get them to be aware. Recognize the need, recognize the importance of this drought, and that's been our focus.
So does Sutter Creek Jackson have anything to share?
I think we did.
I think you did?
Yeah. And what we're planning, so.
One thing we're doing when we're out reading water meters is we've always, if we saw a meter spinning out of control, we always ran to the door, you know, and told them, hey, you got a pipe broken. But now we're going to the point where if we see their meter moving very slowly, we'll wait till the meter reading is done, we'll collect those addresses, and then we go out and we check it one more time, because it could have been something else going on. And then if it's still turning, we'll knock on the door. If nobody's home, we'll hang a door tag. You know,
tell them, Max.
No.
You informed me the other day I had a leak. I fixed it, by the way.
Yeah, it wasn't necessary. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, actually, we both had a leak. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. And they both were fixed.
I thought it was a great service.
So what about...
Our meter readers are doing the same. I was going to respond to Dave's comment about the rebates. We are working on a rebate program. We've got some, we've put it in the budget, but I don't know if it's going to stay there based on the way the revenues are. But we are working on the toilet rebate and the washing machine rebate structure. So hopefully we'll be able to get that going. It's part of our conservation plan, but again, it's all about the dollars.
I think we are about down $500,000 in revenues from where we were at this time last year. So it's beginning to be a big concern. People make jokes that we want to charge more for using less, but I mean, I cut way back and I'm paying a lot less. So my bill went down for using less. So anyway, that's another. Is there any more from Pine Grove?
I do have a question, and I just made a note of it here. My ejaculated donor is gone. Gene or Damon, one question we have there on this well of ours, if we pump 100 gallons a minute, 20 hours a day, how can we check whether that thing's going to stay sustainable, or we're going to pump it dry? Is there...
You'll find out.
Yeah. The neighbors will scream.
You would have a level transducer on it. You would monitor that drawdown of that well over time, and you might shut it off and see how slowly your aquifer or the fractured rock there recharges into your well casing, and then you might run it again. But yeah, you definitely monitor that probably as a daily read, the volume pumped, and the well level.
So there's a couple more here. Hank from JVID, did you want to contribute?
Yeah, last year we went through and changed out a lot of the big meters, got some of them rebuilt, the 6, 8, 10s, and 12s, and that cut down quite a bit of the use in that. Now we have better accurate readings, and the farmers could look at these meters and see what they were using. We also worked with the Davis farm people for the allocations for crops, and then we cut that about 15% from what they said was the minimum you had to put on the crop to get it to produce. And at the beginning of the year, later in the year, we found we were saving enough water to be able to reallocate and get the full allocation as indicated by Davis. We shut down our fish raising operation primarily because it was using a little over 1,000 gallons a minute, and in the winter time there's nobody irrigating downstream, so that water is just going down the creek, so we shut that off, and we may not get that started till this drought ends. We have a few other contracts that we have to maintain water for, like the biomass plant. It generates electricity down there, an 18 megawatt plant. They have to have water, and this year we'll go in and work on the 2, 4, and 6-inch meters that we didn't get last year. We also took our master meter off the 36-inch main pipeline and had it rebuilt so we could get a better reading, which kind of gives us a hint if there's a leak someplace, especially in the wintertime. And so we've been doing our best to try to get this water cut back as far as we can, and we've been getting very good cooperation with the people in the district, because they know good and well if that lake runs dry, they're out of business. And we asked the city of Jackson.
We're doing our best.
And then I think last, maybe Calvert County Water District would like to say something.
I'm Joel Metzger. I'm running the conservation program over in Calaveras for CCWD. This is Peter Martin, the Water Resources Program Manager. We appreciate the opportunity just to listen in to your brainstorming session. I won't go into too much detail, but really we're jealous of you guys because we're looking at a 32% reduction from 2013. So 25 sounds pretty good to us. We are kind of doing similar things to you guys with our conservation program, but one of the things that has been really successful is called Calaveras Conserves, and that's all the major water purveyors coming together and talking like you are today. And we have a website that has each and every water restriction in one place, so it's easy for people to find. So we would suggest maybe you form something like that, because it's very confusing for people who just don't know what's going on. And then we're expanding our conservation rebate program significantly, our inserts, our flyers, our advertising, and we're just looking for anything we can do to meet those goals. So we're just going to kind of listen in today and maybe take some guidance from what you guys are doing, and we'll certainly share anything that we find successful. And just beyond Calaveras County, we like to work regionally. And the IRWM is another way that we can work in that way. And there's a grant over at the T-Stand IRWM, $3 million, and about $1 million of that could go toward conservation efforts. So we're going to try to take advantage of some of that bigger money as well. But we just want to keep in contact and work with you guys. So thanks for the opportunity to participate today.
Thank you. Well, where are we, Gene?
Well, I think, we've been going out for a little bit, and we've got some feedback. We do have some of your emails and addresses. We'll be happy to make copies and share those. I think there's been some good suggestions. We want to keep going with some discussions. Perhaps we can, as questions come up, have an avenue to ask and answer those questions, share information. But really, we've got our work cut out for us. The summer's going to be upon us in no time. Evident by things starting to heat up here soon. So sooner we can get things implemented, sooner we can get information out to the customers, the better our ability to reduce water. So I really appreciate everyone showing up today. I think this is a great start. The more we can communicate, get a common message out, I think the more successful we'll be.
Well, I just, to me, I think that we do need this network. We need some kind of a working group where we can share information about, I've heard some good ideas. So I hope that sign-up list is somewhere, got a bunch of names on it with the email addresses over there. So
anybody that needs to sign up, having a chance.
Did it get around the table over there?
I didn't get it.
Hank, this would be, well, fire up your computer, Hank.
What?
I was just looking at East Bay Mud's approach. Tomorrow their board's going to be considering adopting this critical drought action plan. So it's kind of pulls everything together of what they're trying to do. And I'm kind of wondering if something like that would be useful here. So if we could sort of put all our ideas together on something in writing, and then we all have got something. I think that this contact list, I'd like to see continued sharing of information, and you know, especially anything successes that things are working for people. I really appreciate that.
I just want to add one thing.
Okay.
I know we don't want to talk about rates, but one of the things that I'm always involved in, and some of you are too, whatever we can do at the water agency to help you with 218, I think the agency would be glad to do.
Yeah, we're involved in that right now because we've had to raise our rates and our assessments. So we're going through that process.
No, it seems like in the cities where you've got people out there roving around, maybe police or fire or you know, your public works people, and you see leaks or water, I presume you're trying to make contact or forward those to us. And I think that idea of maybe shoot us an email or whatever, if you know, if we're serving the water. So we need help, we need ideas, and I appreciate you guys all coming.
And before you leave, again, if you want to visit this table, take a look at some of the tabletop for the restaurants and hotels, what we have here, some of the water saving devices that we have available for our customers, some of the handout information, the inserts. Again, we're happy to share, whether they be templates or some of the information we have, if we can pass it along, we have to do so.
Jamie, one thing, we have a ball field too in Pine Grove, that's my clerk field, and they complained about how much the water costs, and I suggested to the pastor that they get a truck, get somebody to bring a truck down, a water truck, fill it at our well for $10 or $12. $12, I think. $12. Drive it up on the hill and just use gravity to feed the ball field.
A little extra labor involved. But cheap way to keep the grass green, like
we're doing. They want to keep the grass green. So far, they haven't taken it.
That's
easier to just burn the spring.
We're talking about education. So this gentleman and his camera and the radio station is right here somewhere.
Yeah.
How about splashy pictures on the front of the ledger? This is an empty reservoir, folks, believe it.
We hope to use all forms of media to get information out there. I mean, that's part of it. You know, something to remember too about the wells is that as we, you know, as people start focusing more on the wells and less on the surface water, we may see a transition of the problem. And we're trying to monitor that now with monitoring how many wells are going dry, are being deepened. You know, I think as this drought continues, it's going to get worse. I think for Amador County, we've been pretty lucky. I haven't seen a lot of really substantial problems in wells. But the more people pump water, the more likelihood that problem is going to be. So keep that in mind. You know, I'm hearing of farmers in some areas now pumping their wells not for ag use, but to sell to others. And it's really only creating more of a problem in the groundwater. So we have to remember that's also a natural resource that we have to preserve and use wisely.
If we wind up using that well, by the way, we're going to have to turn the valve off at Drought. We can't have the Sunset Heights to move.
We'll talk. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.